In this video, you will learn about skin parts and how to use them to drastically change your Spark component's look and feel. In the last few videos, you learned how to skin this employee portal application with the blue header background and pass a custom variable to set the color of the panel skin's header area. In this video, I will show you how to move the panel container's header so that it will sit vertically to the right of the content and have vertical text. To do this, you will learn how to adjust the properties of the built-in skin parts. This is the language reference for the Spark application container that I have located by searching the local help files for application and filtering by the ActionScript 3.0 language and component reference. There is a link in the upper right corner for skin parts. When I click on that link, you can see that the application container has one skin part named Control Bar Group. The control bar is an optional element that you can add to any application container. When I click on the link for Show Inherited Skin Parts, you can see the content group skin part that you have already used in your exercises. Remember that the content group ID is required and represents all the content that is placed into the application. This is the language reference for the Spark panel container. When I click on the link to see its skin parts, you can see that the panel has 3 of them. The title display is the only one that's different than the application container. This skin part references the title text in the title bar for the panel. It is the title display skin part that I will modify to create the vertical panel header. Before I modify the title text itself, I need to move the colored panel background for the title header to the right and make it vertical. In Flash Builder, I am opening the panelskin.mxml file in the skins package. This is the skin class that is applied to all 3 panel containers used in this application. Remember that the color background is created from the path code exported in the FXG file that came from Adobe Illustrator. I am adding a rotation property of 90 degrees to make the header vertical. When I save the file and run the application, you can see that the headers are vertical, but they are placed to the left of each panel container. I'm adding a right constraint of 0 to the path to move it to the right side of the container. When I save the file and run the application, it has moved to the right but is overlapped by content. I'll fix that in a moment. For now, I will make it fill the entire length of the panel container. I'm adding a top and bottom constraint set to 0 pixels. Now when I save the file and run the application, the header background is too long for the container. Back in the main application, I'm locating the content custom components, employee of the month, cafeteria, and monthly events. Remember that they are each nested inside of the employee portal panel custom component. I am control clicking on that component to open it so that you can see it extends the panel container and creates the panel title color property. I'm changing the width property to 311 and the height property to 100%, and then saving the file. When I run the application, you can see that the panel container's height now matches the height of the title bar and that the content no longer overlaps it. However, you can see that the gray background appears behind the curve of the colored title bar. I need to constrain the gray background so that it sits about 10 pixels from the right side of the panel container's edge and doesn't interfere with the header bar. I'm returning to the panel skin file and locating the rect tag block that creates the gray background. I'm adding the right property with a value of 10 pixels. When I save the file and run the application, you can see that the panel container's content and header backgrounds are complete. Now I need to move the title text over to the right and make it vertical. Remember that the title text is controlled by the title display skin part for the panel container. I need to rotate it 90 degrees and move it to the right. So to the label control, I'm adding a rotation property with a value of 90 degrees. When I save the file and run the application, you can see that the title is rotated, but it sits in the middle of the panel. This is because of the vertical align property, which I'm removing. When I save the file and run the application again, you can see that the text is in approximately the right place, but I want to move it just slightly to the left a few more pixels. I also want to make the font bigger and white. Back in the code, I am changing the right property to 8 pixels to push the text a little further from the right edge. I'm also adding a font size property with the value of 12 and a color property with the value of white, £FFFFFF. When I save the file and run the application, the title bar, background, and text look good, but the content is pushed too far down in the page. You can see that clearly in the monthly events panel. Here is the second skin part for the panel container, the content group part. It represents the content area inside of each of the panels. I am removing the top property from the code and saving my file. When I run the application, you can see that the content is now positioned with a nice margin from the top. However, the text in the monthly events panel no longer reaches the bottom of the panel. I am opening that custom component file and changing the height property in the text area control to 462 pixels. Now when I save the file and run the application again, the text fills the entire panel area. Next, I will fix the spacing between the 3 content areas. Within the main application, I am locating the H group container that nests the 3 employee portal component instances and changing the gap property value to 0. When I save the file and run the application, you can see that the 3 panels of content are placed right next to each other. If you previously worked with Flex 3 and tried to make the same adjustments to an MX panel container, you will understand how truly manageable the task of complex skinning has become with Spark components. Because Spark components inherently separate their content and business logic from the skins, you can modify the skin parts in fundamental ways in a few easy steps. For your next step, work through the exercise titled Creating a Vertical Title Bar on a Panel Container.